Hey, how's it going, guys? Jackson here with Toasty DIY, and today we are going to be diving into the basics of Sony Vegas, and I'm going to show you guys some basic video editing. So let's go ahead and go to the desktop cam. So as you can see, this is Sony Vegas Pro 17. I just have it on a new untitled project. I think 18 is out now, but honestly, back in Sony Vegas like Pro 12 even, I remember all the settings and everything pretty much being the exact same. They've slightly changed the user interface, but everything else is really similar. So the first thing about Vegas is it's very, user friendly in my opinion. I've used Adobe in Vegas. I personally think Vegas is a little bit more on the dumber side of things. They make things very easily accessible and laid out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just go ahead and drag and drop a video in. Sometimes it'll ask you if you wanna match the project file source. I usually click yes if that's the case. This is a 4K 30 FPS video, by the way. So as you guys can see, I have drag and dropped my first video file. I'm going to go ahead and go to properties just to verify and let you guys check this out. So this is a 1920 by 1080p video that I've just dropped in there. This is a non-rendered, non-edited. This is just straight off the camera, by the way. And it'll typically auto adjust to your default video resolution and FPS, which it has. It's sort of by 1080 at 30 FPS. All of this stuff can basically stay the same. You want to make sure that this is turned to best. And then everything else basically can just stay exactly how it is, and you should be ready to start editing. So first things first, at the start of the video, you want to add a fade in, but first thing is we need to find the actual intro.
Let's jump right.
So my God, that's loud. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to turn that down. So right here, I'm adjusting the actual volume on this whole entire track. So anything that I put into this audio track is going to be negative 16 decibels. I'm just going to do that to save everyone's ears a little bit. So let's find the intro. Okay, so there's the intro. And what I basically do to find these tracks is, do you notice how right here I've clicked because I see the audio start? So I'm going to click S, which is snip, and then I'm going to get rid of all of this because we don't need it. So now this is the new start of the video at 0 seconds. Hey, how's it going, guys? All right, that's the start. So we're also going to add a fade on the video and then a fade on the audio, so we get this, which looks pretty good. And so once we get past that, we can go ahead and snip here again because there's a pretty long pause and we kind of mess up a little bit. And so basically you just want to find the next part, and then you can kind of choose if you want to do transitions or not. So let's say that I want to add a transition. So one of the things I can do is basically just a crossfade. So you just combine the two tracks together and then you get something along the lines of this. So you see how we had a nice little crossfade. The longer you do, the more the crossfade is. Obviously this would look kind of stupid. But we're just going to do something smaller like that so that the audio doesn't get too garbled. Another thing you can do as well is we're already on the transitions tabs right over here. I really like to use the, if we can find it, portals. And then if you add this one here, you just drag and drop right in between. That's a pretty cool transition as well. And if for some reason you have trouble having playback, you see how I have best full? You could also do like draft quarter, which you see how bad it makes the video look. But if you have a really, not great computer, you can always change it to one of those settings. I usually use like best auto, so it'll choose between any of these depending on how cumbersome the video currently is. So another thing to keep in mind is you can change opacity just by on individual tracks, just by lowering this, and same with the audio. You can also do individual track audio decibel gain, or negative as well. Another thing is, if we want to add a second track in, which you guys will see us often do, I'm going to do insert video track, and then I'm going to drag and drop a second track in. So this is basically, okay, so it's kind of cool. We have some B-roll type footage. So I'm going to go ahead and add a fade in here. So once we drop this track in, it is over top of the other track. So you see how right now we are not seeing this video anymore. We're only seeing this one once you get here, okay? So we're basically going to crop this now by clicking this little crop button. And then we're going to do that to basically add a nice little, and we don't want to cover Zach's face up here. So how about we put it off right to this side? Really easy to do. And it adds for some really cool effects. Like if we're talking about something and I want to add a little bit of B-roll, oh gosh, we got to get rid of the audio too. Once again, lower the audio just like that. So now we have some really nice B-roll going over top of us talking, which is pretty cool. Now the next thing is if you just want to be basic and just add some pretty normal text, keyboard, because it's a keyboard video. And then we're going to go ahead and find a nice looking font. So you know what, I like Impact, that's a cool one. If you want to make it a little bit more visible, we'll go over to Outline. And then we'll do that. Oh, and we'll do that. So we'll add that like that, and then once again we can add another smooth transition, and if we want to we could even, you know, add in another track essentially. So there you go. Now we actually have some text there. If you really wanted to, I don't ever recommend doing this, you can add animations to the text as well by clicking right here. All the animations are complete garbo on Vegas, unless you download some extra pack, so I don't recommend using them. But, you know, let's just say that we're just going to add a couple more tracks here and there. So let's see. Okay, here's a time lapse. Okay, I want this to be in fast motion because we don't really need any of this. We just want it to get over with quickly. So what I did there is I right clicked, I go to insert / remove envelope and clicked velocity. Don't touch anything else in the video you just did. You have to keep it as a full clip, otherwise it's going to go completely insane, and you'll see why. So now we're going to go ahead and trim it back to there. That tiny little notch, it's going to automatically grab to it. So now this clip is going to be in fast motion. Another thing that I like to do as well is on top of that, if you want to control it more, you hold CTRL and drag. You see how we have the little squiggle on our cursor? So hold CTRL, drag, it'll let you do it only so much, and now we have made it even faster. And as you can see, I turned the audio down because what we would probably do there is we'd probably, which hopefully I actually have some music. Okay, so we have a non-copyrighted song here, so we'll go ahead and add in some music. It's going to be very loud, so we want to go ahead and really crank down that audio track. So we'll go ahead and start that off at the beginning, have a really nice long fade in. So there you go. Now for the time-lapse portion, though, we want the music to be a little bit louder, because as you can see when we're talking, very nice volume, not overpowering, sounds good. But however, when we have the time lapse, that's going to be really quiet and people are going to get bored watching. So we're basically going to make a new track for what I call time lapse track. We're going to crank it down a little bit because you don't want to absolutely blow people's ears out. Add a fade in. And now we'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. That was way too fast and way too loud still in my opinion. So we're going to add a fade out here, fade out on the volume, maybe. We'll also add a fade right here so that the clip actually comes in smoothly. There we go. Looks pretty good, sounds pretty good. I like it. And then, you know, we'll basically just say that this is the outro. So really short example, it's a minute long. But you know, we used pretty much all the elements I could think we'd want to use. We added text, we added a video over top of another video. This also applies to pictures. You can add pictures over top of videos as well. We did some things, oh, looks like I'm picking my nose. We also showed you guys how to do basic things like snip. We showed you how to actually create time-lapse / velocity. You can also do the same with slow motion, CTRL, and you can drag it out as well. So now I'm just going to show you guys the basics of rendering out a video, because right now this isn't done. Obviously, always save your project. Don't forget to do that. Saving, though, does not render the video out. Saving it just gives you a save file so that when you click on it, it brings you back into Vegas with your video. So to export, you're going to go to render as. So you can use all different types. This is what I recommend. I have an NVIDIA graphics card, but you don't have to even have an NVIDIA graphics card for this one. You want to render as an MP4. I use the Magix HEVC/AAC MP4. And then you're basically going to, so I created my own custom files. But long story short, so this is a 1080p video, okay? If you want to use one of the pre-made ones, totally go for it. So Internet HD 1080p, we want that. We got 29.97 FPS, 30 FPS, we want that. And my graphics card is an NVIDIA card that has NVENC on it. So because of that, I can basically render stuff like twice as fast using that encoder. So I'm going to create my own custom template. We're going to call it YouTube 1080p. I'm not going to save this because I already have some, but you would click save once you're done. So we want to keep it at 1920 by 1080. Keep that there. We can change, we'll keep that at 29 basically. And then this is where really some importantness comes in. This is your bit rate. This is basically where your video gets its quality from. I recommend rendering, depending on what you're doing, a good YouTube video, I'd say somewhere between, I don't know, 20 to 70,000 as the max BPS. Or if you do megabits per second, it would be 24 and 70 or whatever that second number I said. So we'll just make the average, we'll make this a little bit lower quality. We'll make it 20, let's see, so average would be 14. We'll make 24 the maximum. We're going to use the NVENC encoder. If you use main concept HEVC, that's basically just using a processor to render rather than your graphics card. Let's see, we'll put this to, sorry, not high performance, we want high quality. Keep that the same. You can keep the audio the same. Make sure that you turn this to best. Click OK, and then go ahead and name your project. We'll call this test number 1, and then you just render it out. And that's basic, and you can watch it actually render, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much the basics of Sony Vegas and just everything you need to get started, in my opinion. There's a lot more stuff if you go into depth, and obviously you can look up some tutorials and videos, but I think this is a really good start for anybody wanting to get into video editing. And now that I'm basically done showing you guys how to do it, I'm gonna go ahead and edit this video in Vegas as well.